Hello everybody, how's everybody doing? We're here on Sunday, La Pule Sunday in Pahoa.
This is farmhouse.
We are here gonna do an update on the lava at Kuhonua Opuna, and you know, we're gonna talk story of what's happening around our community also. So this morning when I was at the ocean entry in Kapoho, ocean entry is still pumping right now. Tons of lava entering the ocean, and still, yeah, go right ahead.
Looks like it's more fun here than at the.
Yeah, so
thank you.
you know, ocean entry is still pumping. Multiple entry points, still about a mile and a half. Flows are going towards the south. It's about, I would say, half a mile away from Ahalanui Beach Park. We could see some flows moving through the forest between the 1955 flow and the ocean, and it's moving southward. And we've seen that happen this morning, so there's still a lot of lava, and we could see huge rivers still coming down. But this morning we got update that last night, from this morning, early this morning till like 9 o'clock, the volume of lava had slowed down just a tad, and that was a good thing to hear that helicopter pilots and people up in the sky started to see less lava come into the system. Apparently by lunchtime we got another update and it bumped up again, but it's still doing that pulses up and down. But so we're gonna give it away to these two guys on new updates and talking stories. So hang on, guys. All right, he's back.
Hey guys, glad to be back.
Right on. Talk story. What and also John. What you guys think? What's happening right now?
Well, from what I've basically noticed is we're fairly stable for the last couple of weeks. I know there's been a lot of changes that matter a lot more people in little areas like over here or down in here. But it seems like the first thing is, you know, Fissure 8's been constant the whole time I've been gone, right? So it's definitely the main vent now. You know, for how long, who knows? But it is the main vent, at least for this major phase. And we've seen reactivation of some of the fissures, but they're not really doing much yet. 16, 18, I heard 6 and 15 as well, yeah.
15.
Maybe they're putting out some lava, some gas, at least some heat.
Yeah, so there was some spattering last night that I heard from one of the pilots on 15 and 16 and 18s. They've seen some nosebleed lava flows coming out of this one. So not too bad on
nosebleed, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've
It's
heard
a
that.
technical term. It's a new style. New lava formation.
I was watching on my phone, but I might as well save my battery.
So yeah, it seems like it's I mean, number 8's the one, and we're still worried about that's where a lot of lava's coming out. One thing we've heard a lot about is the overflows of the lava from this channel, right? And then one, you know, there's kind of two kinds of the thing can go. The one we're worried about is a big one. It's like kind of something that's big enough to break that wall out of the way. But there can be lots of lapping up on the sides that just kind of builds the walls up higher and higher and higher without causing a break. And the more of those happens, the better, right?
Yeah.
And the less, you know, and we haven't had that many major breaches from that channel. It was really that one 3 weeks ago now that came down within Leilani.
That was freaky.
Really the most concerning one for everybody and the most eye-opening one of what,
Right.
what it could do. Right.
Big spill. The major, they're still most worried about at the first elbow where the river is still so strong and moving so fast that right at that elbow is where it spreads out, and that's kind of one of the spots. But watching the thermal image for a couple days, it goes through phases where it lets the lava through the channel and it gets like a flowing river, and then it builds up stagnant lava, and then it lets it through again. And so it's changing like that. Some days it's got much more stagnant lava, and then it somehow goes through. So
right.
But I guess we can assume it's when it fills with stagnant lava, that's when one of the big ones might get going, right?
Yeah, but so when it first goes over, it's got to go over that kind of wall first. And so we have to kind of push that wall for a while to actually be able to break it, knock it down. That thing is probably pretty tall, because as the wall is building up, the river is also carving its way down.
Right. I think so too.
Right.
Right.
So, we can argue about why.
So what you mean about that? So the constant flow is actually digging more down into the ground?
Yeah, so there's kind of, you know, the way that we normally get valleys in the world is by rivers full of rocks, right? Usually a river's flowing and it's putting out sand, but it doesn't really carve down that much until there's a big flood. Some big rainstorm, a bunch of boulders come down the river valley, and those boulders kind of knock all the other stuff, and that's kind of what clears out the river, and that's how river valleys kind of carve and change shape usually.
Right.
So we have a river of rock in a different form here, right? So it's like there's like the flash flood is happening all the time, right? So.
And we have boulders the size of houses
Within
being
the mountain
rolled down
Yeah,
the
absolutely,
channel,
yeah.
so that's got to be doing something.
That's it also, yeah. Another thing that I've heard as well is that when you have a lot of gas within the lava itself, it actually makes it more abrasive, right? You have all these different pressure points because imagine a piece of like silica glass, right? A window pane, for example, nice and smooth, no friction, you know, fine, yeah. You can also make sandpaper out of silica quartz glass by having it bumpy. One bump and another, like a bump and a gap and a bump and a gap and a bump and a gap, right? When you have little bubbles within the flow, you basically have a gap and a bump and a bump and a gap. So having the bubbles within there makes it more abrasive at the edge of the bubbles, right? So the more that thing is more full of gas that thing has, the more it can actually abrade downwards.
Whoa.
Actually, physically carving its path down. And not even to mention the fact that lava is hot and maybe might be some melting effect. You know, usually we say, well, it doesn't melt very much, you know, when we see things going down, but when it's flowing that much in one place for this long, then it's definitely melting to some degree, you know. We'd argue, scientists probably argue about whether it's inches, centimeters, or feet, meters, potentially, we can argue about, but it is doing it. So, you know, the combined effect of both of them together, the actual heating it up, I think of like silly putty. When you have hot silly putty that's warm, you can more easily scoop it out. Than if it's cold, it's harder to scoop it out, right? It's just like a simple thing, right? So if it's hotter, even if it's physically getting carved out of there, it's easier to do that if it's warmer. The hotter, the more gooey it is, the easier that is. So it's definitely carving down, I'd say, right? So the more that goes on in the same place, it's carving the channel more and more. The question is it carving enough to accommodate the changes and the increase of lava from the actual source?
So could it turn into like a lava tube and pretty much like Calabana?
Yeah, kind of like a lava. It's kind of like a lava tube as it is now. It's just not closed over, right? It's definitely a channelized flow. It's within the channel. The channel is pretty sturdy, it seems now. And we're definitely going to be concerned about that threat that we saw a few weeks ago because it's just such a big,
changing
big
shape
risk.
Less now. It's staying in the same course.
Yeah,
now.
it's changing shape less sideways and more up and down, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So it's deeper carve. The longer it stays in that channel, the more it erodes it through there, the better off we all are, I think, right? Unless, let's say, there's too much coming out of 8. Let's say for some reason that we're increased by a huge amount, how much is coming out, and it couldn't fit in, then we can start thinking about these other scenarios of maybe it's gonna, like, you know, go off over the channel long enough to carve a hole, a notch in that wall. Because the wall is big, right? So it's gonna carve a notch in it first, but just kind of laps up and over, just add another foot to it, and another foot again. So that's why we've seen such stability the last couple of weeks, and the lava staying within the channel mostly, right? Of course, you know, there's pinch spots, and you know, there's spreading out, so it's the exact details and exact places more difficult to predict and manage. But overall, the pattern is staying in the channel. Right?
Yeah,
that's clear.
Right. Good.
I get another question too. When does, you know, a fissure becomes a vent?
This is good.
You know, pretty much like a, you know, that was a heavy question this whole week.
See, I'm not sure technically how the geologists are addressing this particular, but to me, a fissure is a kind of a vent, right?
Right.
So, you know, a fissure to me is like a vent that's more like a linear shape, right? So if it's like in a line and it's putting out, you know, along, I don't know, some length.
Because Pu'o was a fissure first,
began
right?
as, yeah, exactly. And there were many fissures that preceded Pu'o's actual spot, right? If I remember correctly, it was actually Fissure O.
Oh.
Right? And that eventually became, so, you know, O is, well, maybe, what is it, 10 or 15 or, no, 15, I don't know. It's somewhere, it's before 20 in the alphabet, so I haven't quite got there. But in any case, it was a similar thing where it wasn't the first dozen fissures, it was one of the later ones that actually became a spot that was established at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because everybody was like, oh, well, is it a vent? Could
Yeah,
be this
so yeah,
maybe-
it is a vent. To answer the question directly, it is a vent. You know, but since everyone's calling it Fissure 8, you know, even if it changes into one spot, I think we're that's the name for now we're going to use, you know.
number 8.
If we change the name every week, it's going to be confusing. Right, so we'll just keep
Well,
calling
and then
it number
to
8.
be a vent like Pu'uo'o, right, over time, if it continued to use that exit, the structure of the vent would change. With melting and excavation, more space might form if it continued a long time frame, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so it's still more like a fissure than it is like Pu'uo'o.
yeah. I mean, what made Pu'uo'o very much different was the fact that the cinder cone was able to build in the end was 1,000 feet high.
1,000 feet high.
Right, and that's because the fountains were shooting up almost 2,000 feet high. Maybe not quite 2,000, 1,700, but you know, ballpark.
Yep.
You know, so that's the big difference. If it's shooting up that much higher, it's going to pile up a lot higher as well. Right, you know.
Another thing too, what? Could Fissure 8 become the next Pu'uo'o, you think?
That's still the question that we're having to postpone, basically, because we you know, it's hard for us to say, well, based on what's happening so far, that it's going to be an event that's going to last 35 years. We can still talk about the eruption. We're past Kapoho, we're past the 1 month phase, eruption duration.
Yep.
But compared to 55 was 87 days, right?
Yeah,
We're in a 40, so you know, hate to see it, this might only be halfway there. If we go to that, I know everyone's tired of this happening. It's been forever. You know, it doesn't feel like it's, you know, it feels like it's been a whole, you know, at least a year long already, I'm sure, for most people, right? But we might only be halfway there if it goes by 55. And that's just one data point. That's just, you know, another guess, really. You know, we don't know how long it's going to last. But if you're going to guess, why are you going to guess all the way to 35 years when there's a lot of other numbers between, you know, 1 month, 2 months, you know, going to go to 35 right away. What was surprising to us in that it lasted 35 years in one spot. So, you know, my default answer is I won't believe it until I see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good way to look at it, yeah.
So if we go past, let's say we go past 3 months, and then we start seeing fountains shoot higher, 1,000 feet in the air, if it's not like Pu'uo'o, then we can talk about, okay, is it really going to be Pu'uo'o or not? Right. Is the lava pathway from the summit coming all the way through, fully established, where it can bypass Halemaumau? That's the real question. We don't really know what's going to happen.
That's what I was thinking, you know, after the island is moving westerly, right?
Mm-hmm. Northwest.
So imagine the piping that feeds Halemaumau was kind of off centered of Halemaumau, and then this last event moved the island a little bit more. Could that move?
That's I would think no. Let me borrow John's picture here.
This might help.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have
Right
another
there.
one. Get another one.
Yeah, this is a good start.
Okay.
So the thing we got to remember is that what we call the hotspots, area of heat, where there's heat within a mantle, which is kind of molten rock moving through, is happening underneath the crust of the Earth. The crust of the Earth around here, it's probably in the order of, I'm not sure exactly, something like 10 kilometers thick. So it's, you know, it's at least 5-7 miles, maybe something like that.
I think it's a little thinner than that.
A little thinner, possibly.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's consider the thickness of the crust and then the mountain on top of it as well, right?
Yeah.
This is all basically the solid part that's floating over top of this area of heat generation, right? So what's the way I was learned, the way I learned it when I was taught it, was this stuff actually melts the bottom of this solid part.
Yeah.
And this solid part, it's not so much pulling the lava from inside of the Earth down there, it's kind of melting the bottom part and it's kind of building its way through this crust. In any case, you have miles of crust that's going to come up and through before it gets to the surface in the first place. So what we're seeing coming up out of underground now has been coming up for years through this crust already. Right? So if something like that had happened, it had to have happened years ago. And if it had happened years ago,
yeah, good point.
we would have seen some other indication of it having happened years ago. Like something Halemaumau was, there's no lava Halemaumau anymore. In fact, the Halemaumau was just a few months ago. Shows that the connection was there to me, you know.
A few months ago, yeah.
But it is tricky because the thing is, you know, what's not drawn on this map is that the solid part's got a pathway through, one for Mauna Loa, one for Kilauea, right? There's actually other ones for these other volcanoes as well.
Right.
As this thing moves away here, these things are going to be carried away within that plate, and so
Right.
it's not being added to as much heat anymore. It's definitely very hot down there still, but maybe it's not as hot here as it is here, for example. And we can still argue about how far over this actually goes, but it doesn't exactly matter right now. Stuff is in this solid part, and it's being carried along, and so you can have eruptions other places as well. You know, like Diamond Head, or you know, we can argue about that a lot as well. And maybe not for this
There's
discussion
evidence
today.
that actually 5 islands were having eruptions at once, and not too long ago geologically. So even though they've moved far away, they can still have lava within the island, within the mountain.
Yeah.
And so eruptions can happen further up the chain too.
Yeah, and offshore. Yeah, it would be interesting to at some
Offshore.
point get the data from UH Manoa. They're putting up, they've done a lot of surveys underwater around Oahu, and they're finding a lot of new vents that people haven't identified before. these things have been happening. Maybe we just haven't noticed them. But that's because it's more complicated than that, basically. But so as far as our hotspot itself concerned, back to Kilauea, area of heat over this pipeline, the pipeline it's so long and so deep, and it takes a lot of stuff to come through it that I can't believe that it jumped over like immediately like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But here's another thought, because I had thought of when Ikaika first mentioned that, you know, this is not to scale. The picture Philip had is more to scale.
Well, yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
Right here, this area up here. So what I was going to finish saying is, within this area up here, that you could have a certain rearrangement for sure.
Yeah.
Now to zoom into this is what John's going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. So zoom in inside of the volcano. We somewhere have lava being going from the heart of the mountain sideways to the East Rift and down to Leilani, which is about right here. And so there are ways that within this complex network of channels with the lava circulating through, there are ways where maybe we've got a more direct plumbing system out to the rift from lower down. So there could be adjustments in this plumbing system, but maybe not the main long pipe. So, you know, there's ways that maybe the plumbing has diverted it away from the summit reservoir.
And this is still a half mile deep to 2 miles deep, so it's for us it's still a long way down, and within this area what you're imagining could totally be happening.
Could be happening.
But at a scale of within that upper mile and a half, rather within a scale of many miles.
So a change within the volcano rather than
so the main pipe still comes up down here.
Right.
And then here's a connection we're all curious about, like, what does this really look like? You know, it's just kind of schematic. We know the rocks have breaks that are kind of between each layer of lava going sideways. We know they have breaks going with cracks in the rift zone that way. We know they come up through those cracks to the surface, but what exact dimensions?
It shows you how much we don't know this picture. Like, we drew it, it's kind of like this, but there's a lot of detail that we don't really have a perfect understanding of.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So what we know is that Halemaumau has collapsed right here. So we can imagine that maybe at least some of this upper portion in here has been draining away, right? But how far is a big important question, right? Do we get anywhere near this sideways junction, right? Or do we still have that kind of dynamic that happens? That's what we really don't know. That's what we keep saying we have to wait to see is what's happening in here. And it's kind of thing where we're not going to predict it at any point and, you know, have any confidence whatsoever. We're going to wait and see what happens and then say, okay, now this is what actually happened because we see the evidence of what actually happened. That's what we can't guess. So how long? That's why I can't answer the question directly. Will this be the next Pu'u'u? Because if that bypass happens, we'll only see it after it does and stays in the spot for a while. And if it doesn't, then we'll know it hasn't, and then we'll know it isn't. And until we get to that really at least 3-month point, you know, like for the last eruption that happened in this area that seems very relevant to the one happening now, that's kind of still out of play, right? You won't know that it stopped until at least then, right? That's kind of what we're coming from as far as is it the next Pu'u'u or not? And for now, I'd say no. You know, it's definitely a giant feature in the landscape, which is very worthy of of our full attention. And, you know, it's
8 is significant.
It's
significant.
You know, we've been seeing 16, 18, 17, 20 do their thing, 22. These vents were priming a month ago, and then it moved up to 20, 19, and 13, and 6, and 15. We've seen it from Uncle Victor's house, and now 8. So it's like all of these fissures have played a big role in everything that was happening. You know.
Yeah, let me just remind everybody, it's basically one big magma body, you know, like blade under the whole area is just coming up in different areas. It's the different fingers of the same blade, right? So it happens to be that for whatever reason the crack is wider there, or widened more easily there, or for whatever reason that's the easiest spot for it to come out is 8, so it's still coming out of 8.
Yeah.
And you know, that's where the stability comes from. At least, you know, it's found that spot to come out in one spot, so it's not jumping around all over the place and giving us 5 zones to worry about the same day like it was before I left. You know,
before you left, we had lava running everywhere, and then most of the time you were gone, it was just 8. And I feel like at this point, it'd be best if it stays at 8 and get that lava to the ocean without covering anything else. It'll be a whole new lava flow if a new vent becomes the active one. So it's almost better if it were to stick with 8 and finish up.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Yeah, what we all want is for it to stay where it is and stay in the channel until it's done. Right.
Right. And so is it a possibility to go uprift?
It's definitely possible. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, possible and probable, or, you know, I don't know, it's possible the meteorite hits the windshield of my car on my drive home today, right? But it's not probable that's going to happen. So I don't know how probable it actually is, but it is possible.
Right.
While this thing stays at the same output and everything seems fairly stable, I'd say it's unlikely, or at least in a short term. You know, now if we start seeing those cracks open up, clearly Yoshis is concerned about that possibility happening. That's why they're measuring it every single day, right? So that by doing that, they're kind of reassuring us it's just not happening anytime imminently, right? If we do start seeing more heat, more gas, especially more SO2 coming out of there, you know, then something is happening that might alert us to the fact that it might come out of the ground there, right? But just like everywhere else, we saw the cracks opening first. Not every crack put out lava, so the ground can move without lava coming out of the ground as well. So it's too soon to like, you know, panic about that. I'm glad everyone's kind of, you know, taking the evacuation seriously and, you know, gotten their plans together, even if they're, you know, back in the area in and out. Everything is kind of organized, hopefully by now, that, you know, if something happens, you can get out of there quickly. But we're not expecting it to happen anytime imminently, right? And that's the challenging part, is how long does it really take for these things to change, and how do we react to them as people, right? Because, you know, what we've talked about just now is, you know, this process of geology changing over like thousands and tens of thousands of years, right? And it's hard for us to wrap our mind around it happening when 1 week to the next lava's coming out of a new hole in the ground. So that's where we're really struggling, kind of, how can we guess it's 35 years long if it's only been a month and a half?
Right.
Yeah, but that's, you know, time is really, I'm dealing with jet lag myself right now, but, you know, time is like kind of warped for everybody as far as this goes, as far as like
time
how it
has
actually
no
works.
meaning for more than a month now. Like, what is time? Lava time is different.
Right on. So, any questions, gang? I know there's a lot of questions out there.
Let's see if I can find over here. The summit's been changing a lot, yeah. Halemaumau has been continuing to collapse.
It's amazing.
Amazingly, the pattern is, you know, stayed consistent, right?
Yep. Very consistent pattern.
So,
usually giving people an explosion sometime in the early morning, waking them up.
It looks like a new seven steps of Delhi.
yeah, we're gonna find that story. Yeah, 'cause I don't know much about it apart from the fact that it's out there and exists and where the steps were, and people used to traverse them to go and visit Halemaumau, right? But I'd love to learn more. You know, anyone who's out there knows more.
So
Yeah, let us know. Yeah.
us three we're gonna be in the field later on tonight,
All right.
investigating on what's going on, and we're gonna be with myself, Andrew, Phil. You're in, huh?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
John, you're in.
Don't tell anyone.
So we're going in the field and check out what's going on. People need to know what's going on. You know, they need to know what's happening with the flows. People need to know what's happening in their neighborhood. People need to know. People need to be updated, almost an hourly update every day, just to keep people sane, because there's a lot of uncertainty of what's happening around us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's harder. You know, for me, I've been doing what I can from abroad, but, you know, like, without seeing it, I really don't know what's how much volume you guys are talking about, how much higher or lower, or that kind of stuff. So
It's insane right now.
So okay, everybody. So that was our talk story and lava updates with what's happening now in the
we'll do another
community.
one later.
Yeah, we'll do one later.
Yeah.
Phil, you got anything to say?
You want me to leave
Catchphrase?
that? I don't have a special one yet. I gotta think about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One moment at a time.
And me and Phil gonna say, stay
Stay
classy,
classy,
Puna.
Puna.
Aloha.